And so like having some resource like this, or being able to reach out to you or a good CPA or accountant and like get that plan in place. I should say a CPA that actually does tax planning and strategy, not just your taxes.
That's right.
Right? Because that took a few years for me to find the right fit there as well.
Financing is king. Before you ever look at a deal, make sure the numbers work. And you get this a lot with first-time home buyers, but it's the same for investment firms buying massive multifamilies. The idea of something looks awesome, and you fall in love with it before you've actually confirmed the numbers work. So if you can't finance a deal, the deal doesn't exist. So that if nothing else, people take away, financing is king. Before looking at any property and falling in love with it, run the numbers, make sure they work. And as I talk about, I mean, quote unquote, running the numbers is different for buying your own home versus buying an apartment building. But run the numbers, whatever that modeling entails. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I'd say is don't ignore taxes. Because it's just kind of like, we have to pay them.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of tax advantages to real estate, but it's not the silver bullet. You see these, and this goes back to my frustration with these TikTok influencers saying, like, oh, pay zero taxes. Are there strategies that can minimize your tax bill? Absolutely. Can you use some cost segs to maybe get a big reduction in a certain year? Absolutely. It's not a silver bullet, and you can't just lie. You have to report your taxes accurately, and understanding how accurate bookkeeping for your rentals ties in with accurate tax reporting. So yeah, financing is king and taxes matter, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's why for each chapter I talk about first the financing, so the forward-looking, how do I underwrite this deal, make sure the numbers make sense. Then I look at the accounting / bookkeeping of, oh, I've acquired this, how do I actually account for the transactions going on with this property? And the final part of every chapter is, what are the tax considerations? Mm-hmm. And those are different for having your own primary residence versus an apartment building, but regardless of what they are, you have to know them. And the Internal Revenue Code is anything but user-friendly. Mm-hmm. So I did a ton of research trying to distill this wildly complicated Internal Revenue Code into the key items that investors at a certain step in the real estate journey need to know.
Yeah, and that's super helpful. You can't understate taxes. I mean, there are a million tax advantages with real estate, but there's also a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't do it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, people forget depreciation or capture. The IRS is going to pinch you on the back end.
Yeah, we actually I had a guest in here yesterday that owns a cost seg company, and so we were talking about cost segregation, but also recapture as mm-hmm. well. So. But yeah, there's so much to think about. I mean, even I had such a good tax issue on my the first couple years investing. I bought so many distressed properties, and I lost so much money on paper that I wasn't bankable. And like that was such a bad problem to have at the point, because I was like, also we were expanding our family, so I needed to buy a primary residence, and I was making more money than I'd ever made, and bankers were looking at my tax returns, and they were like, you are losing so much money, we could not even begin to loan anything to you. And I was like, and then they were like, you need to show a year that you actually show us that you know how to make money. Yeah. And so I had to like change my investing strategy for a year, and then go back to trying to lose as much money as I possibly could. Yep. So, but yeah, it's just it's such an interesting game. And I think I'm still learning it, but if you get it dialed in to where you have enough, income that you can write off, but it's not too crazy to where you're just bleeding money on paper, there's some good balance that you can have, with the carryovers and stuff like that.
And tax planning isn't a short-term exercise. You really have to be looking in the future. So I mentioned them briefly, but it's not really the focus of this group. I have my own personal qualified opportunity fund. So there are tremendous tax benefits, especially if you have capital gains from prior sales. But a lot of that, you have to be thinking a few years in advance to when are you going to recognize the initial gains from the contribution, and then at what point in time are you going to reap the benefits of your step up in basis. Right. But none of that's like happening in 3 weeks. You have to really be looking at the next 10 to 15 years of what is this horizon. And actually, you don't have to do that, but you're not optimizing your tax strategy if you're not looking far into the future.
And that was absolutely me the first few years of investing. I didn't know any better, and so I was just like, what do I need to do this year? What do I need to do this year? And it would hurt me the next year. And so, like, having some resource like this, or being able to reach out to you or a good CPA or accountant and like get that plan in place. I should say a CPA that actually does tax planning and strategy, not just your taxes.
That's right.
Right? Because that took a few years for me to find the right fit there as well.